It's time.
What was your message about finishing it in these final 30 minutes?
Well, it happened in West Virginia where we knocked off number 2. It happened in South Carolina, and it's happening in Pittsburgh today.
Our guys had a lot of guts tonight. We're just going to keep getting better. I mean, that's what it is.
One hell of a game that you will never, ever forget. We shocked the world!
Hail to Pitt.
Hail to Pitt. This is the week of September 4th, 2021. This is our triumphant return to your podcast feed, and this is the Hail to Pitt podcast. I'm Alan.
And I'm Vince.
Back due to popular demand. It's another season of hailing and podcasting, Vince. I know some people were saying, oh no, you might not come back. I might just listen to all the 2020 episodes. But you don't have to. They don't have to. We're covering the whole damn season, and we're getting started today.
Yeah, a lot of moving and shaking going around. But we just had to get back here to talk about this exciting Pitt season. A little disappointing that our third host of this show, Pam, due to some scheduling conflicts, answering to a higher power, she may not be able to make all the episodes this year, but Al and I are going to try to hold it down as best we can. She will be making some appearances this year. I promise you that. But
she better.
But for right now, Alan and I are going to get to this thing. A lot to talk about, a brand new season, and I am just hyped beyond belief. It feels like last year didn't even happen, Alan. It feels like we haven't had football in a couple years.
I honestly, there are two things I remember from last year. One was eating delicious food in your side patio yard watching Pitt beat Louisville. And then I remember getting my heart broken watching Pitt lose to NC State at my grandma's house. That's all. Everything else was a blur. Those I remember vividly. Those two moments.
Yeah, it was. It started out hot, and then immediately, just air really let out of the balloon, and then just couldn't get rolling again.
But the silver lining everyone's talking about during the offseason is all the opt-outs in the last few games last year, given all that experience to a lot of the younger guys at the end of last season, and that might help Pitt out a whole bunch this year is maybe a surprise team in the ACC Coastal. We're going to get into all of it. This is a season preview show, Vince, so be ready to preview it. Offense, defense, we'll talk ACC, we'll make overall college football sort of predictions, if you will. We'll get into all that. I don't know. We may also have to do a UMass episode later in the week. We're going to call it this entire thing on the field all season long. All we know is we're covering the whole damn season. I am excited, dog.
Absolutely. There is a lot to talk about, Alan, as you said, a season preview. And I believe we'll be dropping in for another episode this week to preview that big UMass game.
Yeah.
Labor Day weekend.
The Whipple Bowl, they're calling it. Are they? I don't know. I just made that up.
There's a lot of, we got the Whipple Bowl week 2 at Tennessee, Johnny Majors Classic, just, battle for coach and brand supremacy early in the season.
Yeah, week 3 against the Bears in the Wannstedt Classic. Can't wait. All right, everybody. At H2P Show on Twitter is where you can hit us up on the social media and whatnot. We're going to be mostly active this season, I guess, on Twitter. So that's where you could reach us. DM us if you like. Like Vince said, Pam will be on the show here and there this season. Handle most of the social media. We're going to try to pick up where she left off on that front. And, of course, we have the classic email for you. Hail the number 2 Pitt podcast at gmail.com. If you want to reach us via email, send us a long form question, send us a note, say hi, whatever you want, you could do there. We appreciate all the feedback you give us on social media and, of course, on Panther Lair, where we are also active and lurking, reading what you're saying and sometimes talking about it on the show. Hail to the Pitt Panther fans on Panther Lair. And Chris Peak does a great job. Of course, we are brought to you by Pretty Easy Podcast. Once again, giving you another great season of the Hail to Pitt podcast, Pretty Easy Podcast, producing up these shows, and they make it so easy on us. We just focus on Pitt sports. They focus on editing out the stupid things we say or the technical glitches, and they get it to you on your favorite podcast feed, and we don't have to pay that much. And all we had to do was go to prettyeasypodcast.com, which you could do today if you'd like to start your own show. Here we go, Vince. Let's begin. Football season upon us. The Pitt Panthers are going to be attacking the college football world with Kenny Pickett once again under center. And when you have a quarterback coming back, 4-year starter, 5th year at the school, you got to think, wow, this team has some quality leadership, great experience. They've got a solid defense. Pitt Panthers could be dangerous. But preseason, nobody's picking them to win the Coastal, but they're picking them to be dangerous enough to scare some teams, probably not Clemson. But overall, Pitt coming into this season with a lot of the same expectations we've had during the Kenny Pickett era.
Yeah, and I would say, those of us close to the program are have high expectations. At least I do. But like you said, Alan, around the country, I mean, yeah, they're probably looking. You got Kenny Pickett back, but you lost a lot of big time players on defense. Even with Kenny Pickett, your offense was very stagnant at times. So it doesn't surprise me that media folk are predicting Pitt to finish, I believe it was 4th in the Coastal Division. If you look at North Carolina, that's a top 10 team right now. Sam Howell, quarterback, returning, a Heisman candidate, with King returning at Miami. They're a extremely dangerous team, and they got that Miami cachet there. So it's not surprising, that Pitt is not picked towards the top of the Coastal Division. But I think, at least I feel that they have the talent to contend for big things in this division. It's put up or shut up as far as I'm concerned.
Well, yeah, especially offensively, because I feel like last year we so many identifiable issues for the Pitt offense with Kenny Pickett at quarterback, and they're attacking the field or attacking other defenses like they're a professional offense, but they don't have the tools to maybe do that. So I'm hoping they gimmick it up a little bit this year. I'm hoping that they get a little bit more creative this year and open up some running lanes too, because obviously the run game did not help out at all last year, but everybody's excited for Izzy Abanikanda to be one of the best in the ACC. So that might help.
You're thinking that they need to run more of a Saturday style offense.
I would appreciate if they did, buddy, because I think watching Pitt offense last year, just a little too frustrating, seeing them try to be something they are not.
Yeah. I mean, it just, the running out of the shotgun, where, it didn't matter who was back there, the ball carrier getting tackled, immediately for a loss. It was just extremely frustrating. And whenever you couple that with dropped passes, lots of dropped passes, that is just a recipe for disaster. But I like what you're saying, Alan. You execute a little bit better. Yeah, you mix up your play calling a little bit more. That could, increase your offensive output by orders of magnitude.
So let's face it. Last year, we were all hoping and expecting Mark Whipple to maybe call it a career when it comes to coaching in Pittsburgh. Maybe go back to a smaller school like UMass or retire. He had some great years of service, but just offensively, the Pitt Panthers under him have not been impressive. Actually, big decline since the year before he arrived, and they weren't even, comparatively to the rest of the country, that great even before. So under Narduzzi, overall, offense has never been great, but he's the key to keeping Kenny Pickett. They wanted to keep Kenny Pickett. Obviously, having a 4-year starter at quarterback is pretty good. Potential NFL talent, some say, especially Pat Narduzzi. So I guess it's a pill to swallow in order to keep Kenny Pickett? Are you okay? That's my first question this season. If it means keeping Kenny Pickett, are you okay with keeping Mark Whipple? Or have you settled in? Are you comfortable? Or are you just feeling like we're doomed?
I'm not going to say that, although I know some people are. I feel like, Kenny Pickett has the potential to play at an excellent level, but it's not all the play calling. The blocking's got to be better. The route running's got to be better. The catching of the ball has to be better. That is, killed so many drives last year. That must be better. I'll say this: I do have a lot of confidence in Nick Patty, backup quarterback. I feel like this is a guy that, when he's been called upon, has done very well. And I know he had some injury issues last year, wasn't really available a whole lot. But, the year prior, whenever he had to step in, especially over that big win at home against Central Florida, he stepped up to the plate and he got the job done. I'd feel very confident that. But Kenny Pickett's just on another level. This is a BMOC player, Alan, and you know how important those are to the heartbeat of the team. So I'm going to say, even though Coach Whipple is back, I think it's worth it.
I think it is too. And I think Kenny Pickett, maybe all this NIL stuff he's doing is putting it in perspective, just how important he is and how big of a season it is for him and the school. He's doing radio shows, podcasts, charity work, all sorts of stuff he wouldn't have been able to do before the rules changed here in college football and college athletics. And that just puts even more pressure, but I think also more confidence on him that he's being, afforded these opportunities. He, listening to him on the radio and on his podcast now, he's saying the right things. He's approaching the season, I think, in a manner that is there's urgency. You could tell by the way he's speaking, for him at least. He knows that Mark Whipple's back because of him. He knows this, and so Kenny Pickett really, I think, going into this season, I don't remember a season where there was this much riding on a guy's kind of career and for the team. Because if Pitt goes out there and has a 6-win season, Kenny Pickett stinks it up and hardly has any 300-yard games. There after it, Kenny Pickett could wind up looking for employment outside of football or in a non-NFL league. And Pat Narduzzi might be on a hot seat. That's very possible and a very, I would say, a bettable scenario. I wouldn't bet on it, but I could totally understand why people would. And that could happen if Kenny Pickett doesn't pick it up statistically and in the win column for the Pitt Panthers this year. Because he's barely been average, I think, in his career, and he has a big moment coming up. So it's all on Kenny Pickett. It is. And that's easy to say because he's the quarterback, but I think this is totally on him going out there and forcing guys not to drop the ball, making a star out of Lucas Kroll, making an even a superstar out of Jordan Addison. That's what's on the line this year, and that's what's got to happen.
Well, you got a good point there. I mean, a good quarterback can mask a lot of other issues that your team may have. And, if he's got to be somebody that's got to make everybody better, one way or another. And like you said, if they have a 6-win season here, I mean, you got to look and say, what the hell are we doing with this team? My goodness, that would just be an absolute disaster. It's got to be better than that.
Because, you got to look at the other big name quarterbacks in the ACC, and you specifically Sam Howell. I'm comparing Kenny Pickett to him all season long. That's the standard now preseason of quarterbacks who are going into the season and have NFL pursuits. Now, this guy is going to be handed an NFL contract. I think regardless, if he has a mediocre year, he will be fine. But he's not going out there with a Clemson Tigers roster. He's at North Carolina.
Yeah.
He's not. He's in a situation like Kenny Pickett where he's got to lift the game of other players up too. So Kenny Pickett, you're going to be compared to your contemporaries. So you have to outperform that guy. And DJ, I can't pronounce his name yet, from Clemson. Kenny Pickett, nowhere near top 5, I think, in the ACC preseason of quarterbacks. But I think he has a chance, a sneaky chance. But we'll see if he's too tired running to the sideline getting plays from Mark Whipple. What about the offensive line, Vince? We've got a big leadership change, no Jimmy Morrissey. So the offensive line's going out there with youth but experience this time around. A lot of guys got their reps in, a lot of red shirts on the offensive line. So does this translate into, they're actually going to be able to run block and protect Kenny Pickett this year?
Yeah, well, if you look at last season, those last few games, they were playing lesser competition for sure, but the offensive line played significantly better. Matt Goncalves stepped in as a freshman and was just moving people out of the way. And, as of right now, he is not projected to be a starter. Carter Warren and Gabe Hoy at the tackle positions, according to Coach Narduzzi, have had better camps. So the fact that, those two guys are being inserted into the lineup ahead of a guy that looked outstanding at the end of last season tells me that there's good, healthy competition, and those guys are improving their game. And then you got Marcus Minor transferring from Maryland as a graduate transfer. I think that's a big thing to help shore up that inside of the line. I feel confident in all these guys. I think the biggest thing, it's going to come down to that center position. Owen Drexel, this guy's been in the program for quite a while. He's had, he's played here and there, but now is the time he's really got to step up. I feel good about the other 4 guys on the line. I feel good about the reserve players, that 2 deep there. I feel like we have good guys that would step in. I think it's all going to come down to that center position, Alan. And as you know, that is maybe one of the most important positions on the whole offensive line.
Absolutely. And you're replacing Kenny Pickett's best friend too. So a lot of pressure on Drexel. And then you also look at, I look at the depth of the offensive line too, because we're bound to see at least some different configurations usually throughout a season. And of all the position groups for the Pitt Panthers, the depth of the offensive line after the starting 5 is tough. I mean, Goncalves, if he's not starting, I think is a solid backup. I would prefer if he started over Gabe Hoy. My that's what I'm hoping personally. Carter Warren, I feel like progressing. Pretty rough a couple years ago, a little bit better last year. I think is due to be a leader on the offensive line. Jay Cradle, I think, is pretty reliable. And then, so I think we'll see good progression from everybody who's starting. But after that, what is there, Vince? It's a lot of unknown, unlike all the other position groups where I'm comfortable if we have an injury to a receiver or even tight end now, actually.
Yeah.
Because everybody's played at least. They can't catch. And then defensively, they're one of the deepest defenses in the ACC.
Yeah, I mean, Blake Zubovic out of Bell Vernon, this kid, he's played a good amount. He played some last year. I feel good about him stepping in if we had to. So I feel like that top 7 offensive lineman, I feel good. You feel good about your number 1 tackle off the bench. You feel good about your number 1 guard off the bench. But Alan, like you said, beyond that, hard to say. You're putting in somebody at that point who really hasn't played at all. And it'll be either sink or swim. We'll have to see how they do.
And that's going to be tough because the offensive line is really expected to make a pretty big leap this year. So we'll see, because Israel Abanikanda is going to go out there, and I think sounds like he's done the work. He's been pushed by, I think, Vincent Davis, who in camp they said is looking faster than ever. I mean, that game he had to end the season. That's one other thing I actually remember from last season. Remember that? Did he have over 200 yards?
Is that the one
game?
Is that the one where he was going to go get lit on the plane?
You feel me? Well, we finna get lit tonight, yeah.
Yeah, he went and got lit off on the plane. He came back. He's in better shape, but he also has a guy in front of him that everybody's expecting to be a burner. So Pitt's running backs, again, feel deep like they did a few years ago, but it'll be moot if they're running behind a bunch of chumps. And Pitt's offensive line did not inspire a lot of confidence going last year when it comes to the run game going into this year.
Yep, it's got to be better. One way or another, it has got to be better. And I think it will be. I do have confidence in these guys. They're putting in a lot of work, and I think by the time we kick it off September 4th, we're going to see it.
Okay, defensively going into the season, Pitt football is being talked about by your preview magazines and your national pundits as a unit that's expected to be pretty damn solid. And Pat Narduzzi is in his flow, Vince. He's feeling it when it comes to defenses year to year now at Pitt. That's a good feeling. It feels like what special teams are at Virginia Tech and what offense is at Hawaii, except yesterday against UCLA. Pitt has when it comes to the defensive line, but also overall defense. Now I am so confident in the Pitt defense now. Every year to year.
So Pitt is playing like a early 2000s team, is what you're telling me.
Yes.
That's the kind of pipeline that's going there. And I'm not
going on.
I'm not quite sure if that's good or bad.
We got so many defensive linemen I want to see play that will not get that many reps this year.
I know. If you look at defensive line, linebacker, secondary, they're bringing back a lot of experience. But at the same time, you hear some of these national guys that aren't following the program that closely. They're not your Phil Steeles or Lindy's that are really digging into the numbers. They're looking at, you were counting on a Jalen Twyman last year who opted out. You had Jones and Weaver, 2 NFL draft picks gone on the defensive line. So they kind of feel that we're depleted, but that is not the case at all. I am hyped beyond belief to see some of these guys. I really feel that,
two guys in particular for me. I'll let you go first.
I was going to say, I feel that there's probably, coach probably feels good about, maybe 9 or 10 of these defensive linemen that are good. And he feels good about, it seems like, maybe 6 of these linebackers, possibly more. And he even made the comment, it wasn't that long ago where he felt like, we couldn't rotate anybody at linebacker, or we couldn't rotate anybody at cornerback because we just didn't have enough good players there. It feels like he's finally at that point. It's taken a little while longer than some people would have liked, but it looks like that there's legitimate depth here. Not everybody with a ton of playing experience, but guys that are playing and at least practicing at a very high level. I'm going to throw out one guy here, Alan, before you tell me your couple. John Morgan III. This guy, we have seen him play in very small spurts, but this guy is an excellent pass rusher in my opinion. He's gotten very overlooked the past couple years because of how many great players were ahead of him. But this guy is a sleeper. And as an outside rusher, I think he's going to make a huge difference. And people are really going to be surprised with how good this guy can play.
Oh, yeah. D-line U is going to strike again for sure. I mean, this is up and down. Maybe the most excited I've been about the defensive line. Not maybe there isn't that one standout badass who is unbelievable, definite NFL first rounder, second rounder. But now Pitt has, I would say, at least 5 to 6 defensive linemen we've seen play and have awesome games, make big plays, make impressive athletic plays at least. And there's so much more to come for guys like Habaduke and you got, I mean, we've seen stuff even from Tyler Bentley a little bit.
Yeah.
Who we'll see a little, rotate in there. But of course, the two guys I'm most hyped for on the defense overall, because of what we saw, and they're so young, Kalijah Cansey and Servassier Dennis coming in this season now as mainstay players, as relied upon players from start to finish. So excited to see what they do in leadership roles on the defense. I mean, maybe neither guy is the man, because that's probably Cam Bright, I'd say, is the leader of the defense going into this season. But I'm just excited to see them. And then you got Keyshawn Camp back from injury, along with Mr. Wendell Davis back too. Keyshawn Camp, what about Pat Narduzzi's prediction here, Vince? Predicting that Keyshawn Camp will not be injured this season.
I hope he's right, because we've seen this guy when healthy has been an excellent player. He's been able to play inside, he's been able to play outside. To me, it seems like we might have more guys in the mix on the outside. I'd like to see him as an inside player, and I think he can do very well. And I think this is going to be the year where he stays healthy and he's going to make a big impact, and it's going to be felt. I'm telling you. Being able to rotate those inside guys, keeping them fresh, that's going to be key to this season. And I just can't wait to see this guy finally get back out there, Alan. I know he's been dying to get on the field.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see him back out on the field, but it doesn't count if he doesn't get hurt and you just put him on the outside all season long here and there, Pat Narduzzi, and you don't use Keyshawn Camp. Hopefully he's being used and we see that big number 10 on the field, along with, how great is it that Pitt's off defensive linemen are all single-digit players, except
great
for Devin Danielson. I love it. And then you got the secondary, so there's no Paris Ford anymore, Vince. You're losing a madman vocal leader. So who's going to be the person that person to be in the secondary, talking everybody up, getting everybody focused out there when you lose a vocal leader like that?
Well, I'm more concerned about losing DeMar Hamlin, to be honest.
That's the talent. I'm talking about the spirit of the secondary.
Well, it sounds like Brandon Hill is really bringing a lot of fire to this defense. And he's big playability. If you want to talk about somebody that could replace Ford in that aspect.
He literally did with the opt-out last season.
Yeah, and that's the thing, that you could argue that this secondary, again, not as good competition, but, they played much better without Ford. Ford, an excellent talent, a guy that, could make a huge play and turn a game around at any time. But, how many times did we see him out of position? How many times was he arguing with the coaches on the sideline? That kind of stuff. This could be an addition by subtraction situation. Again, still have to replace DeMar Hamlin. Going to have to replace Jason Pinnock that was drafted last year. But I feel that there's a lot of good talent here. We got Damari Mathis coming back from injury. Excited to see that.
Could be huge, yes.
Could be huge. Brandon Hill, as we talked about. And then MJ Devonshire could be, maybe the sleeper key to this whole defense here as an extra defensive back. He's been working at corner mostly. It sounds like he could be that nickel guy, or maybe that third guy off the bench, behind Mathis and Marquez Keese Williams. I'm excited to see what this guy could do. An Aliquippa product coming over here from Kentucky. This could be absolutely huge, Alan. You can never have enough good defensive backs, especially in college. This guy, apparently, according to Narduzzi, has really started to make an impact on this defense. He's picking things up. I'm excited to see him.
And named after my favorite street in Oakland, Devonshire, beautiful, beautiful, historic road. So lovely to drive down, and hopefully so good in the secondary as that extra man. The rotation is all we've been hearing. The rotating. All camp long. If you read anything into what's been going on at Pitt camp, It's that defensively, they'll never be tired, right? They're going to be throwing guys in there.
They should not be.
They'll be throwing guys in there left and right to give guys breathers, because there's so many guys that have had experience now that got the playing time last year due to opt-outs, and there's so many guys that Narduzzi, who is, you have to earn playing time on this team, especially on defense. You have to earn the trust, and a lot of guys have now. So that should bode well, but be a different type of vibe for the defense than it has been for other years. So maybe there isn't that one standout name defensively as a star, although I can make an argument for some guys like Cam Bright or what Kalijah Cansey or Servassier Dennis could do this year. The fact is the Pitt defense might be stronger this year because they're going to be rotating and so deep.
Yeah, I right now, I think what you're saying is accurate, but there will be stars made on this defense. I'll tell you that right now. There will be stars made on this defense. Servassier Dennis, number one. This guy could be the best middle linebacker Pitt's had in a very long time, in a position that has been, they've struggled. They've struggled to find guys there.
Better than Scott McKillop.
Could be. A guy that just came out of nowhere and has really performed. I'm excited to see what he could do. I think he's going to be a star. Another guy, Alan Dayon Hayes, defensive end out of Westinghouse.
Yes,
this guy, with so much depth on that defensive line, he didn't really play that much last year. Although after that first game, he was leading the country in sacks. Two sacks, was leading the country in sacks.
I remember being so excited when he got recruited and he came on board. We were talking about him a couple years ago right on this show. He's one of the first players we followed in recruiting on the podcast, and now look at him. He's out there playing. It's exciting.
Yeah, this guy, he don't necessarily look it. He doesn't have all these muscles just bulging out of all these different places. But he's not an incredibly tall guy. But if you watch him, he just seems like he is going to be a big star. And coach has kind of been saying that he is that that fourth defensive end. He is right there. Alexandra, Morgan, and Hubba. Hayes is right there with those guys, and it seems like he is going to just explode with more playing time this year, and that's a good thing for this defense. They should not be in a situation where they look too tired, Alan. They should have the guys rotating in there constantly.
Speaking of the rotation, as we wind down the defensive talk, will Elliott Donald be rotated in at all, you think, this season? Can fans expect to see the primo de Aaron Donald in there at all as a freshman?
Well, you can play up to 4 games and still redshirt. So I think it's possible that he could get some time in these games. And if you look at the way Pat Narduzzi has, handled some of these games against the UMass, or, they have a game against New Hampshire later in the year where they've played just a ton of guys. You would think if they would do that, if he would have that kind of mentality, that he could get into some of those games. But it appears right now that the depth chart is just so stacked that you wouldn't expect him to get on the field right away. And that's a good thing as far as I'm concerned. But I will say that I'm hoping that Pitt is up by a significant amount in some of these games, and that he is able to get in.
I'm calling it. Elliott Donald gets a sack against Western Michigan week 3, and then we'll see him again next season. He'll be redshirted shortly after. That's my prediction.
Okay,
although maybe not. We'll see. We'll see. Also, of course, you got barring injury or poor play, God forbid. I don't know how much they'll have to go on, though. That's the bummer about this year's schedule, I'll say. While the Tennessee game is week 2, and that's a great test, Western Michigan, I guess, also should be, fair enough competition. But with New Hampshire and UMass also on the docket, those first 4 games, it's gonna be. I don't know if we're gonna know exactly who the Pitt Panthers are until October and ACC play starts. Like, I'm not a fan of that non-conference schedule leading up to ACC play this season. It's pretty weak. And I know we get to go to Tennessee and everybody's excited for Rocky Top, but those other 3, PU.
Well, I'll say this. We may not know if we're good, but we'll know if we're bad.
Yes.
After those first 4 games.
That's true. That's true. And also probably a type of schedule we won't have to endure for much longer now with the Great Alliance in the future.
Yeah, we'll be getting to that a little later on in the program.
We will, but there we go. A little preview of offense, defense. Do you have anything to say for special teams? I didn't write anything down here, Vince, but I mean, new kicker. That's big.
Yeah, a kicker that coach still hasn't told us exactly who it's going to be yet, and it doesn't sound like either guy has really separated themselves. And there's a lot of, you hear a lot of mixed reviews that they're just not hitting at a high enough clip, and that could be, maybe that's going to be a blessing in disguise, and that we're not. Well, they do.
Yeah, I saw Kessman. I didn't even realize Kessman finished the greatest kicker percentage-wise, 50 yards or deep in NCAA history.
That's impressive. Make no mistake about it.
Long ball kicker ever in college football.
We need to get an established kicker for sure, but maybe not having a good one is going to be a good thing, because maybe that means we'll be going for less field goals and trying to actually score. Because kicking field goals and from the 5-yard line, we cannot have this anymore.
But
this is 2021.
It's easier to do because otherwise, if you have to have Kenny Pickett run to the sideline from the 5-yard line, Mark Whipple's not allowed to pass the 25.
40, something like that.
It's really it's inconvenient. So that's like, I think they always just kick the field goals out of laziness.
You could be right. I don't know. It's hard to say. But special teams,
it's not the case this year.
Kirk Christodoulou is he's been punting pretty well. So I expect that to continue this year. But the kicking for sure, we're not quite sure yet, and we'll see what happens.
We'll see also what Jordan Addison does as a return man too. I mean, big things hopefully lined up. Do you think they'll be throwing him out there, or will be maybe Vincent Davis will get a crack? What do you expect?
Addison, he's so valuable to the team as a receiver. I don't know.
I don't know who college. I'm all for put your best guy out there to return and do everything if you got someone who could do it.
I'm not gonna disagree with that. Coach has said
Heisman's are won on punt returns.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Jordan Addison, if he's gonna win the Heisman this year, he's gonna have to return a few punts.
Exactly.
But they're Coach has he's talked a little bit about the return game, and of course he listed like 10 players that are auditioning for those return spots. So I don't think we're going to know until September 4th.
And we'll wait. I could wait. I'm fine with waiting.
Yeah, I would rather not know anything about this team, because if I don't know about it, then nobody else will know about it.
Exactly. But I'm hoping that it's completely different from the UMass game to Tennessee. I say actually start Nick Patty week 1. Get him the reps.
Jesus, no.
Get him the reps.
We can't do that. But I will say I want to see Pitt go out there. We're going to talk about it next week. They better go out there and just stomp this team. They better be up, significant points at halftime, and then after that, get Nick Patty in there.
Do not take it easy on your buddies there at UMass, Mark Whipple in the Whipple Bowl. What do you say we go back? We haven't done it in a long time. Back online. Let's get connected and see what they're saying on the Pitternet.
Can you explain what internet is?
I hear there's rumors on the internets.
And to all those faceless keyboard warriors on Twitter.
But we're a good darn football team. I'm proud of these guys.
So how are you pitting online, gentle Pitt Panther fan listener? Are you reading the forums? Are you on social media? Are you listening to other podcasts? How are you pitting? I've been pitting pretty hard the last month or so, getting ready for the season, Vince. And whenever I'm on the different platforms, I'm always thinking, well, what kind of Pitt fan is in this spot? Like when you're on Panther Lair, would you say that the Panther Lair Pitt fans are older? That's my vibe.
I don't know if they're necessarily older, but that's the hardest of the hardcore as far as I'm concerned. And some of the darkest opinions, some of the most depressing, but also some of the best information. So, love or hate those guys, you got to respect them.
That's true. Panther Lair might not always be the best vibe, but it is the place where you'll see, hey, I saw so-and-so partying too hard on Wellsford the other day, and they're not going to have a good game, and they won't have a good game, and you'll know where you heard it first.
We've all been there. We've all picked up on that kind of information. It's just whether or not you want to share it.
Did you see on social media what was going down at campus when they all got back earlier this week for that Wells Fest? Did you hear about this?
No.
We didn't have a Wells Fest when we were there, and I was just there, a year and a half ago.
What's Wells Fest?
It's on Wellsford Street, right? It's a small side street that I never even went to because, we dwelled on Byron's, your Oakland Avs, Bates. You'd go on Cato sometimes, occasionally, if you want to get real buck nutty. This Wells Fest, they posted on social media, Vince, the Pitt student body, they look pent up like they've skipped a year. It was a sea of students just getting lit, hyphy, buck nutty, crazy. It's insane. It looked like a concert. It was nuts, and it was on the streets of Oakland.
It was a block party gimmick.
A giant party. You can't walk down the street. It looked like every student was there.
Was the football team there?
I hope not.
I hope not too.
I think they're staying in a hotel, which is a great thing they do for camp. I'll have to send you that link. The hitman, Dan Mancini, sent me out of nowhere, just at Twitter. He said, look what's going on there right now.
He may have been there.
He might have. He said he wished he would have. Me too, kind of. But, what about people that are more just podcast listeners? They obviously are listening to this show, but what about you got your Panther Lair podcast? Now Kenny Pickett's got a show. Durin Dickerson and Bill Stoll have a show now together, Vince. A lot of good Pitt content out there for the audio Panthers.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff out there. Chris Peak, I mean, this guy is just pounding the pavement more than any Pitt writer or talker out there. You can't give him enough credit for all that he's doing. He'll talk your ear off. He'd go 24 hours in a row.
I listened to his last show. He was sick. He was sniffling, coughing live, and he just kept going. It felt like Beano Cook took control of his body, and he was just nonstop. I'm sick. I don't care. Damn it. I'm just gonna power through. I haven't heard anyone cough like that on a show since Beano Cook. But Chris Peak, you're right. He is the standard of Pitt coverage.
Yeah, I will say I'm very excited. I haven't listened to the whole first episode yet, but this Durin Dickerson and Bill Stoll show, I'm very hyped for that. Those are guys that we went to school with, Alan. The first time you were there, and these guys were good ball players. Did they get the job done at the end of the day? No, they fell just a little short. But it wasn't for a lack of effort. Those guys went out there and they left it all on the field.
Absolutely. And these are great ways for you to follow along. Obviously, we want you to listen to this show, but we do it all. We talk on this show. We listen to the other shows. We read everywhere else. It's an immersive experience all season long. It's a community. We love it when people interact. Just one thing I'm going to say is, if you're a Pitt fan, why would you listen to 93.7 The Fan?
Yeah, I mean, it's
no points.
Yeah, and yeah, if you, I feel like once a week you could hear some good commentary on that on Panther Lair, talking about 93.7 The Fan.
Hey, and I'm a radio guy. I love radio, but man, oh man, it is so tough. And they're supposed to be the flagship covering the team. It just makes 0 sense the way they go about doing it. Any other honorable mentions, blogs, newspapers?
I mean, you could read newspapers. There's Jerry DiPaolo, the Trib. He's following them pretty closely. That's good. I don't know if you'll find good columnists though, talking about Pitt at any.
The Athletic got anything going on for Pitt athletics?
I honestly don't know. Even though Pam has a subscription to the Athletic, I have not.
Oh, really?
I have not looked.
Maybe we'll dabble this season. I'm looking forward to the coverage all over the place, and see also how NIL gets involved. Most importantly, because I'm hyped for one day. Hopefully, we'll also get a Habaduke Baldonado podcast. Maybe we'll get a Twitch featuring Abanaconda and Gabe Hoy. I don't know. These guys can do whatever they want now. Vince, it's NIL time.
Yeah, it's quite the time. I'm still excited to get to the Oaklander. Try that Kenny Pickett burger.
Yeah, the Oaklander. Beautiful, beautiful hotel. Might stay there next time I'm back in town. I'm on my world tour. Also on the Pitternet, I was on Panther Lair lurking, and I saw someone put a poll question out. Very interesting, Vince. So I said, why not steal it and just ask it on the show? Because we'll give credit, of course. 9 national championships is the user handle on Panther Lair. Shout out to them. Who said, how should Pitt arrive at Heinz Field for games? The Gateway Clipper, a march down Forbes, a bus ride, or other? What'd you vote, Vince?
I'm voting bus, and I'll tell you why. The Gateway Clipper would be great, although what if the boat runs out of gas? Then you got to get another boat out there. There's too much going on there.
Listen, that'll never ever ever happen. As a former employee of the Gateway Clipper fleet,
I thought you were just an employee of the dock.
I was a dock hand, but I was a part of the fleet as a crew member. Those are the most well-kept engines and boats. They may not look like it because the rugs and carpets inside of them are filthy and old, but they're great vessels. And also how far I could swim they could swim to the game technically. I'm surprised they didn't put that. It's not a wide river. It's not hard to get across.
You know how tiring they would be tired by swimming across that river. And who knows what's lurking in there.
I vote Gateway Clipper just because it'll look cool. Put a big flag too. Put it on. That'd be great shot for ESPN to show everybody crossing and then getting off the boat, walking over to the game every week. That would be a great thing to do. It would. Yeah, barring no disasters. I also would like the look of walking down Forbes Avenue with the cathedral in the background. I think would be a very good visual, but that's a very far walk. It's a little far. Maybe when they build that stadium on campus, we'll do that. But love that poll question. 9 national championships put up on Panther Lair, and if you want to send us stuff or put it on Panther Lair, we're always there too. At H2P Show. Love hanging out on the Pitternet with you and get involved. Pitt football's here, so get connected, baby. What do you say we go into the real world again, Vince, and around Pittsburgh, where I haven't been there in a couple weeks. I'm on a world tour, but I know around town a lot of people are talking about, the changing landscape and the future of where Pitt football is going to be playing their games.
Yeah, a lot of talk about who's in what conference and all that confusion is starting up again.
Another Saturday coming and the Panthers are playing, trying to find out what the yinzers are saying.
You think Pitt will end up one of them super conference teams?
Nah, they're going to return to the Big East in that when it's all said and done.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool, but I don't know. I don't really care as long as they end up playing and beating WVU again. Who cares where they play? Am I right?
Hell to Pitt.
What the yinzers are saying.
So that's what the yinzers are saying. A lot of confusion over what conference teams are going to end up in, Alan. I'd like to get your thoughts on this alliance.
The Great Alliance.
Well, all right. Well, I think we should start it off there. I mean, what should this be called? To me, this is like an unholy alliance almost. Do you really want to be associated with the Big Ten? I'm not quite sure, but apparently we are. But I was also thinking about the name Death Triangle. What do you think about that?
The Death Triangle, as long as the Big 12 doesn't end up getting that invite last minute, that would make sense. So, okay, you're affiliated with the Big Ten. Sure, that's lame. But Pitt getting to play against Ohio State and get thumped and maybe beat them once in a blue moon, not the worst idea. Pitt getting to play Penn State every year would be awesome. And then obviously the question of where WVU ends up is what I'm most concerned about. I'd rather play them than Penn State as a Pitt fan. I want that backyard brawl back, regularly. But doesn't look like that's in the cards with this alliance. I don't like the name Alliance. That's a bad taste in football fans' mouths. The Alliance of American Football was a joke and sad. Why couldn't they think of something better? I don't know. Well, they didn't want to say merger. They couldn't say anything else. And this isn't even anything official. It's just a verbal agreement, and not even a solid verbal, which is what you're looking for in college football.
Like, you talk about all this schedule stuff. Like, is that all really going to happen? Like, are they going to say, "Oh, we're going to play," each ACT team's going to play at least one Pac-12 team and one Big Ten team every year? Like, is that all that stuff really going to happen? I'm not quite so sure. I think
I'd much rather have one game against Oregon State and then a game against Northwestern than Western Michigan and New Hampshire. Those aren't big leaps, but it's a little bit better.
Pitt roaring into the Coliseum to play the Trojans. How about that?
Oh, my God. If it happened, I would be there front and center.
But, I think that this is mostly going to be a benefit of, just a voting together on important issues such as this playoff, and foiling, the SEC trying to get, all of their teams into the playoff every year. That's what I think this is mostly going to be about. I'm sure there'll be some schedule stuff somewhere down the line, or bowl game alliances or something. I don't know, but right now I think it's strictly just a political voting situation.
It's silly though, because it seems it's so easy, I think, for them if they need to change the status quo of college football. There's easier ways to do it, but there's like there must be crazy egos and just insane amounts of money that people don't want to mess with, that is preventing everybody from just coming together and, making a new structure to how these conferences interact. And Pitt being on this side, on the alliance side versus the SEC, that I think it does not put a lot of confidence in me that Pitt's going to end up on the good side of where this all ends up. I definitely think all the money when it comes to college football is on the SEC side, and all of the voting power, obviously, with this alliance, seemingly is with the alliance, but then none of it is official. There's no contracts. So how can you trust anybody when it comes to this? And in the end, I think I would bet on the super conferences looking more like the European Super League they proposed, where it's less teams but bigger schools, and Pitt would be left out of that, and in some sort of what would be in the future the modern day Group of Five.
See, I the one thing I still can't see with all that is, are these really big schools are going to want to play each other every single year and essentially be like the NFL, where everybody's 7-9 or 9-7. They don't want that. They want to talk about undefeated seasons and things of that nature. They like beating up on small teams. So that's why I just, at the end of the day, I can't see just one conference with the 20 best teams and then nobody else. I can't see that happen.
Well, that would be a completely different sport, because college football is all about, like you said, the undefeated seasons, the walking that tightrope all regular season long. It's what most people love about it, how important every regular season game is. They would be obviously very important in a super conference like that, but very difficult to have that result be undefeated or one-loss seasons. So I don't know. It's so impossible to tell. All I know is that Pitt's in bed with the Big Ten on this thing, and that just does not make me feel good. You're right.
It's an unholy alliance. I'm telling you.
All right. Well, we're talking about overall college football. That's obviously on everyone's minds, the super conferences, but put that to the back burner because football is actually being played now. You don't have to give me your Heisman. I don't want to know who you think is going to win the Heisman. That's a trophy with a certain criteria. I want to know the player you're acknowledging this season as the non-Pitt player that's must-see, that you're just are excited to go see play college football this year.
Oh, I mean, there are tons that I'm hyped to watch this year. But I'll give you one, and this may be more of just a team situation. I'm not quite sure, but that Matt Corral, quarterback at Ole Miss, that offense just wild. Just a wild team playing no defense whatsoever, just throwing all over the place. This guy, he's got a BMOC type look at.
Yes,
Allen. I'm excited to see this offense. I'm excited to see him. They're actually going to be kicking off Labor Day night against the Louisville Cardinals of the ACC, a game that we could see, easily 100 points scored.
I mean, I like that approach. You're in the SEC, you're not going to out recruit Alabama. You're not going to out physical teams like LSU. So why not just go out there and just try to run it up, play balls to the wall every week? Ole Miss has a good approach to it. Matt Corral is going to be exciting to watch for sure this year. But
yeah, I'm not saying he's the best player in the country. No. I'm just saying he's a guy that I think you got to watch.
He's not even King. Haynes King's the quarterback I'm excited to see in the SEC being announced as the starter at A&M, but that's not my player. But if I'm talking SEC specifically, that's where I'm looking. Speed and size. But if I'm talking the player I'm acknowledging this year, it's a player that actually humbled us last year, and I've gained respect for, and because he's got the look that I want in a quarterback, I'm going with Phil Jerkovic or Jerkovic or however the hell you're saying Jerko's name. The Jerko beat us last year, and I'm pumped to see him and the guy that literally I think became a star against Pitt, Zay Flowers, go out there this year and do damage in the ACC. Good thing we don't play him, but I'm going to be watching him.
Yeah, a lot of people talking about Boston College as a big-time sleeper team. If they did not have to, go against Clemson, I think a lot of people will be saying them as a potential to get to the ACC title game in Charlotte. But they got a good team. I'm excited to see how they do. I think they're going to be a tough out.
So those are our players we're excited to watch. We're acknowledging Heisman, a different topic. Obviously, Jordan Addison, the leader of the pack preseason for that award, is because he's going to return kicks and catch all the touchdowns. But we'll move on to the teams in the ACC specifically. Who will be the head of the table in the ACC, and why would it be anybody other than Clemson? It's the most boring conference to predict every year, but it will be Clemson once again, Vince. But by how much?
I don't think it's by as much as everybody's saying. I think they're an extremely good team, but I don't think DJ Uiagalelei, maybe.
You got closer than I would.
I don't think he's not a Trevor Lawrence to me. He's not a Deshaun Watson. I think he's a good player. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think he's at the level of those guys. And think about all they're going to have a tremendous defense. They're going to have a lot of, firepower on offense, but, there's a lot of new players, Travis Etienne's gone. how good is that backfield going to be now? I'm sure that they got some 5-star guy coming in there, but we'll see. We'll see when the lights come on. They're going to get tested week 1 against Georgia, a game we'll be talking about next week for sure. Very hyped for that game, but even if they lose that game, they could still run the table the rest of the way pretty easily.
They're winning. They're going to win the ACC very easily, I think, this year. Maybe easier than ever. You know who their toughest road ACC game is preseason on paper?
I haven't looked at their schedule recently.
The Pitt Panthers. They play at NC State.
NC State's a good team. I'll tell you that right now. NC State's a good team. In fact, I looked at some, gambling people power rankings, and they have NC State rated very high.
Really?
Yes, rated very high. They got that Leary coming back at quarterback. They got some big guys on the defensive line. I think they're going to be a good team. I think they're going to finish second in the Atlantic Division. That's my prediction. NC State's going to finish second. They're a good team. I think Pitt, having the draw, Boston College and NC State last year, no excuses, but I think those were 2 tough games that they almost won and they should have won. But not having them on the schedule this year and replacing them with the likes of, Duke and Syracuse, I think is going to do good stuff for the schedule.
Well, NC State, I don't know. I mean, I know they ripped our hearts out last year, but I don't expect them to have more wins than Pitt this year. But yeah, Clemson goes there. They go to Syracuse, Pitt, Louisville. They're winning the ACC, whatever. Coastal, are you a UNC, picking UNC to win the Coastal? I feel like, here's mine. I don't think Pitt's winning the Coastal, but I think Pitt is finishing ahead of either Miami or UNC. I don't know. Somewhere
to think about the math there, but I guess that could happen.
Yes, they're going to finish ahead of one of those teams, the 2 teams that everyone's predicting to win it. That
could be. I could see that. UNC, they lost a lot on offense at the skill position players. Like you said, we'll see how good Sam Howell really is. Can he make other people around him better? We're going to find out. He's very good. I'm still gonna pick them to win the division. But I think Pitt will give them a run for their money. They may even beat them.
I could see it. I would not be surprised. If Pitt beats Miami, then I'll be surprised because I'm expecting them to win the Coastal this year. That's my prediction. Ahead of the table in the Coastal East, but then, of course, getting whooped by Clemson. Far and away the best ACC team, which, again, the ACC isn't really a Power 5 conference in football when it's just Clemson and everybody else.
Well, you say that, but I'll say this. I think that, if Pitt's as good as we think, and I guess, Alan, are we going to give our season prediction for Pitt at the end of this show, or are we saving it for next show?
Give it now. We'll do it now.
All right, we'll do it. We'll do it at the end of this show. If Pitt's as good as we think they are, if North Carolina plays as good as they can, if they live up to their hype, if Miami lives up to their hype, I think Boston College, NC State are going to be good ball teams, and certainly you have Clemson there. I think that shows up for a pretty good conference. Probably better in the Big 12, and maybe you'd put them. Maybe you could make an argument that they're better than the Big 10, and maybe better in the Pac-12. Maybe they're the second best conference this year. I don't know. We'll see how it all shakes out. But I think they're better than people are giving them credit for.
Well, we'll get to that prediction here in just a moment. But real quick, what playoff are you expecting? Those 4 teams. We only have to pick 4 for now. Thank goodness, because I don't want to have to pick preseason 8 playoff teams. That's no fun. 4 is cool. And yeah. I think if we look back last year, actually, well, you give me your 4. I'll look at what we said last year. I think I had OU in there last year. Do I have them this year? Find out in a moment. Vince, give me your 4 playoff teams.
I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna say Clemson, Alabama, Georgia,
Ooh,
and I'm gonna say Oregon.
Oregon,
Yeah,
a Pac-12 team in the playoff.
yeah. I'm gonna say Oregon.
Really?
I think I think they got a very good defense, and I think that their offense, they got some sleeper skill position players there. Not enough people are talking about. I think that it's going to be a tough ask to win at the Shoe in week 2, but if they could do that, they could certainly get to the top 4, no doubt about it.
Wow. So
I don't know. I mean, Ohio State, I mean, they're going to be loaded for sure. But I just don't know. I don't know. They got to replace a lot. How good are they going to be? You look at a team like you look at Oklahoma and Iowa State in the Big 12. Oklahoma, it just seems like to me like they're going to trip up.
Same here.
They just seem like they're going to trip up.
And you're going with the same strategy I had last year with 2 SEC teams. I think I missed on Florida, though. But here's mine. So I'm not going with a Pac-12 team. I got Ohio State in that Oregon spot, but I'm going Clemson, Alabama, and A&M.
Texas A&M, really?
Football playoff.
Wow.
Yes. It's possible.
It's possible. Yeah, they're definitely I think they're good enough to get there.
And
they are definitely good enough.
I'm not predicting it, but can very, very much see A&M being the higher seed than Alabama, meaning they beat Alabama.
I think Alabama goes to College Station this year. Is that correct?
Yes, and it's a year where Alabama is coming off a national title, and they are not good at defending the national title. Historically, under Nick Saban, what a great statistic to have about your team, though. You're not good at defending all the national championships you won the next year.
You should probably look at that Alabama win total. I believe it's at 11.5. So they'd only need to lose one game to cash that ticket. They're going to have a tremendous defense this year, no doubt about that. But offensively, I mean, they got to replace so much, and you got some quarterback that's hardly ever played, making millions of dollars already. How is that going to turn out?
The first on the books millionaire quarterback in college football. I love it.
How good is he? I don't know. That's the thing. Same thing could be said for Ohio State. You're replacing a pretty damn good quarterback in Justin Fields. But at the same time, you got a lot of talent for sure, but are those guys going to be as good, and are they going to be as good that quickly? Because they're going to have a tough test. Oregon week 2, I'm telling you.
What if Miami beats them week 1 in the Alabama situation? What if that happens?
Then I think you need to
all of a sudden.
Then I think you need to start considering Miami for the playoff if they would be able to do that in the first week.
Not happening, but I'll be rooting for it. All right, here are my Pitt predictions, wins and losses. I've got them at 8. It's optimistic, I would say. I got them at 8 wins.
8 is optimistic.
I think that's optimistic, yes, because I think it's a more likely 7 or 6, but I'm going with 8.
Oh, that hurts. Normally, the normal person is probably telling you that they should win 9 or 10, but then they're going to end up winning 7 or 6. But I mean, if you look at this is the easiest schedule that they've had in quite some time. Now
I definitely see a 4-0 start. I'm calling that now.
And that would be the first time that they've ever gone undefeated in the non-conference. So you look at that. You look at now. We don't know how good these teams are. They got to go play at Georgia Tech.
That
team
scares me.
A team that's getting better, but still, if you're Pitt, in this situation, if you want to be good, you should beat them. Duke is horrible. Syracuse is horrible. Virginia is a decent team, but you do get them at home. And then you're looking at Clemson, Miami, North Carolina, Virginia Tech. Are they going to lose? Those
first 4 ACC games, I'm telling you, it could be a rough go.
It could
to start conference play this year.
It could.
I don't like that setup for the first 4 conference games on the road for 2 against a team that you can't beat usually on their home field, and another team that is, like you said, Georgia Tech is improving. And okay, Pitt's still probably better than them, but the fact that that's on the road and the first ACC game could be kind of a tough spot for where it is on the schedule. I much prefer where they had Georgia Tech last year near the end.
Yeah. But I mean, we have no control over the schedule, so we just got to go out there and play it. We don't. You talk about Virginia Tech, it's either we lose a close game to them or we beat them by 50 points. That's kind of the way it's been recently. And Chris Peak had a nice article over on Panther Lair talking about how, this Tennessee game and this Virginia Tech game could be, the decision makers in this season. Are they going to be a 9-3 team or are they going to be a 7-5 team? This is a put up or shut up type of year. If they don't win at least 8 games, that I'm going to be very disappointed with this schedule. I think they have to win at least 8 of these games. And I'll say that they're going to do that.
So you're saying the acceptable losses would be to Clemson, Miami, and North Carolina.
Yeah.
And all the other losses are unacceptable.
Well, no. If they would lose to Virginia Tech, I suppose that's not an easy game
because they're going to be dogs in at least 5 or 6 of these games.
Well, how many games would they? I guess Tennessee, they're probably going to be a dog against on the road at an SEC team. And
Virginia Tech.
Yeah, they'll probably be an underdog there.
And definitely the other 3 for sure.
Yeah, so 5 games that they would be an underdog in.
That's not 8 wins, if Vegas is right on all those.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Tennessee seems like just an absolute disaster, and a game that they should win. If you're Pat Narduzzi in your 7th season here, you got to be able to win these games. If we cannot win these games, then maybe we should be going in a different direction. But that's something we're going to be talking about at the end of the season. Hopefully, not talking about at the end of the season. We're going to be talking about much more wins. I'm going to say this team's going 8-4. I feel like they have the potential. I feel like they have the ability to win more than that. But you got to prove it.
And if Pitt wins 10 games, Mark Whipple is getting an NFL head coaching job. There we go. A new season. The Hail to Pitt podcast, Vince. We're underway. Here we go.
I am just super hyped for this guy. I can't believe we got to wait. I guess it's less than a week now till the first game. But it's 6 days. But it feels like a long way away. I can't. It's gonna be a long week getting ready for this big UMass game. But I am unbelievably hyped for it.
I am too. It is kickoff probably a couple hours before I'm going to have to go to dinner for my mother-in-law's birthday, though. So thank the football gods for ESPN Plus and streaming. I will be watching that game on my phone under the table at a family dinner. But enjoy it, everybody. We're going to be breaking it down because we got another episode coming out this week. So thanks. Tell your friends we're back, and follow us at H2P Show on social media. Were you and Pam watching the game week 1?
I'm going to be at the game.
Oh, you'll be at the game.
I will be at the game.
You're going to games this year.
Yes, I will be. I will be at the game. Pam, I do not believe is going to be at the game. She's got a work gimmick that she has to do. And I'll say it here. Everybody go out before you go to the game. Stop by the Plum Library book sale and get yourself a nice book.
Love a nice book
that you can read and wind down on Saturday night after to come down from the high of a huge Pitt victory. That's what I would do.
Yeah. Johnny Majors ever write a book? Didn't Dave Wanstead just write a book?
I don't know, but he was saying that, all these teams were joining the Pac-12, and then the Pac-12 said those teams are not joining. Nobody's joining the Pac-12, so I don't know if we could trust anything Dave Wanstead said, at least as far as college football conference realignment. Now, if it's where to get the best fish sandwich at, then definitely believe that.
Do you think we're going to see him at like 3 a.m. giving away sports bets, his picks for the week pretty soon?
Oh my God, I hope. Well, I'd love to see it, but I don't think I don't think that's where his best work could be done.
Well, I'm excited. The season's underway. Vince is going to be at games again, so that means we're getting back to some sort of normal here. A real football season on the horizon, everybody. Hopefully you're staying healthy and you're prepared for it. I know I am, and we're going to be rocking and rolling with the podcast all season long. So again, we're back. Thanks for listening, and we will see you for our UMass preview coming up. Vince, you got anything left?
Hail to Pitt.
Hail to Pitt, everybody. See you next time.
You still think I'm crazy standing here?